morning, everyone joining us online and here in the room, and those joining us from Malawi, good afternoon. You are welcome to this final Malawi at 60 Governance Series webinar. If you've been following, we've had the past four, and which this one is the fifth one, which is the last and final. I'll soon pass over to Ken, who's the one chairing this, and he'll hand over to Dr. John, who is the one leading us today. So before I do that, I just want to request that those joining us online, would you please kindly mute your microphones and only unmute when you're asked to speak. And also that everything else that will be shared here will be recorded and it will be shared online on our website and on our social media pages. So if you share anything, just know that you've given us consent to share everything online. With these few things, I would hand it over to Ken. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasim, and let me add my welcome to everyone to today's webinar. This webinar series has allowed us to sample the contents of this brand new book, Malawi at 60, a political and economic analysis. And I'm going to start with a bold claim that this is the best book about Malawi's 60 years as an independent nation. And the reason I can be confident about making this claim is that, as far as I know, it's the only book about Malawi's 60 years as an independent nation. If someone can point me to another one, I'll be delighted, and we hope that more will come. But currently, I think this may be the only one that has made this attempt. And it comes from the commitment of a number of Malawian scholars who last year, when Malawi was passing its 60-year milestone, committed themselves to offering an academic analysis of what has gone on in the 60 years. So as Nasim has said, we've now reached the final webinar in the series. So I don't want to let it pass without paying tribute to all those who have worked tirelessly to turn the idea of the book into the reality that we now have in our hands. So I must start with my two co-editors, Professor Giftwa Sambo Kaira and Dr. Mzee Herman Yokonia Mvula. Being in the driving seat of this kind of ambitious anthology is never an easy task. But with these two as co-drivers, it's always been a pleasure to be together as we navigated the journey. And of course, there would be no book without the contributors. And I must thank them for all their patience, perseverance, expertise, and talent, which have delivered the book that is now before us. The publishers, too, deserve our sincere thanks. This is a co-publication. I don't know if you can see the spine here. You'll see the logo of the Kacheri series and also of Mizuni Press. And anyone who knows the publishing landscape in Malawi will know how much these two have contributed over the years. And we're delighted that they were able to come together to publish this book. This one that I have in my hand is produced by the African Books Collective here in the UK in Oxford. And our next assignment is the production of the Malawi edition. We're working on that urgently, and I hope very much that we will have the book available in Malawi in the near future. Let me also take my chance to thank the Scotland-Malawi Partnership, our hosts today, for running the webinar series that has introduced at least some of the ideas of the book to a wide audience in Scotland, Malawi, and even beyond. One of the aspirations of the ongoing cooperation between Malawi and Scotland is that it would contribute to the improvement of governance. And we hope that this series can be one small contribution to this hugely important area of work. Now, let me get onto my main task now, which is to introduce our presenter of today. And I can start off by saying John Luanda is a medical doctor, which is true. And most people who are medical doctors, it's a very demanding, absorbing career, and they can't really do anything else. They just have to do their medical practice and put their feet up in the evening, and that's it. But John somehow has not been able to confine himself to the medical sphere. So he has had, in addition, a whole other life as a social scientist, cultural commentator, an activist, an entrepreneur. I think the big word in English that describes John is the word polymath. So he knows everything, but especially about Malawi, he knows everything. Even those of us who live in Malawi, if we want to really know what's happening in the country, we have to ask John. So we're very fortunate to have his contribution in the book. And I think many of us who are here will be aware of the scholarly contributions that he's made, particularly his two big political books, Kamuzu Banda of Malawi and Promises, Power, Politics and Poverty, which has just very recently come out in a new edition. So these have become seminal works in political science in Malawi. But he couldn't confine himself to that. So music has also been a very big part. And there's few people who know more about Malawi's music than John does. Unfortunately for us, this bore fruit in the recent book, Making Music in Malawi, which I think is the most comprehensive survey that we have of Malawi's music. So there are these big books that John has contributed, but there's also a series of very insightful articles that have come all through the years. And they're often articles that are right on the intersection between politics and culture. So I think it's where we'll find John operating today. So in addition to his own work, currently, he is also editing the Society of Malawi Journal, together with David Bone, who's also here at the live occasion in Edinburgh. So he's very active in literary work. And so how could we imagine making a book like this without John's contribution? In fact, there's not only one, but there's two contributions. So he has one chapter which is analysing very much Malawi's politics. And it asks us a very challenging question, which is whether the performative democracy that we have in Malawi is disguising what in reality is elected autocracy. So I'll just leave that there and recommend that chapter to you, because today we are turning to the other chapter, which is more on the cultural side, but it doesn't depart from politics either. So instead of trying to summarize it, I think I'll let you hear it from the horse's mouth and turn to Dr. John Luanda to introduce his chapter.
Thank you. So the title is Rumours, Orality, I think it is right. Rumours, Orality, Literacy, Voice Notes, the Evolution of the Malawi Public Sphere, 1961 to 2004. This chapter has taken 30 years to write, and I'll prove it to you at the end of this talk. It covers development studies, music, politics, literature, linguistics, various other things in psychology. Anyway, slide 2.
That's where we are now.
Yeah. So the main thrust of the chapter is that what's in the public sphere must be developmental. And by developmental public sphere, we mean a public sphere with frequency, quality, robustness, and veracity of information. Because if you've got such a public sphere, what comes out of it is developmental. Next one. Construction of the paper. So the paper, first of all, starts off with definitions and theoretical underpinnings. I was scared because, the rumors, people say, oh, what is he talking about? The rumors, can rumors be social science? It is. Definitions, theoretical underpinnings, and then the Malawi public sphere, and Malawi public sphere formations at different times. And then I'll go on to discuss certain selected printed texts, contemporaneous and archival online material, and then deal with voice notes. At the end, of course, I give some suggestions and conclusions. So definitions, I think on slide 5. Yeah. So rumor is defined by researchers as unverified stories or propositions for belief that spread from person to person through informal channels. Rumors often emerge during crisis and stressful events as people come together to make sense of ambiguous, evolving information, especially when official information is delayed. I'll give 3 examples. One, when President Bingu Mutharika died, I remember that time I was writing this paper with Amy Chaniga, who came out, and I was coming out of Addison Hospital. I got a phone, and Amy Chaniga says, "Oh, the president has died." And I said, I was stunned. Why? And of course, it took a week before that factual information was proven. In that week, it was rumor, counter rumor, and all that stuff. The second one was the VP Chilima's air crash. Now, that's taken months, and we're still speculating about it. And I can guess that there might be another commission of inquiry, if only for political reasons. I don't know. Another example is a historical one. A lot of politicians, particularly on the right, talk about Dr. Banda's golden period when there was a period of plenty with no petrol shortages. Clearly, this is not true because there were petrol shortages. Now, if you're writing history, you cannot go into the archives and find newspapers to say that there's a petrol shortage in Mangochi, because the editor clearly would have been arrested or stayed. So we depend on those of us who are here, letters from home. There's no petrol, so difficult to go from Malindi to Mangochi. In 1992, UNESCO were compiling the music of Malawi, and they must have gone to Chancellor College Department of Fine and Performing Arts. and the guys there went to a Beni troop from Angochi, and that troop recorded a track called Ayana, and the Beni singers are singing Jemadola Akunjima Petro. You know, Mr. Madola is deprived me of petrol, denying me petrol. I am going, Shingazale kwa Mbuja Makanjira, I'm going to complain to Chief Makanjira, Kudanda Ula, you know, Kudanda Ula. So that's my complaint. Okay? And at the end of the song, we say, we're just joking, you know. But that, if you tie in with the period, end of the 80s, when the IMF was squeezing Malawi, and, you know, anecdotes from Malindi, we know that there was a petrol shortage. Okay. The other thing we could do is, I'll come back to Daniel Kachamba, who associated with the people at the university, like Mitch Thompson, sang a song called Miseche. I'll come to that if I get time. Okay. Now, there is a framework for assessing whether an event will generate a viral rumor. Okay, I think we'll slide 6 if it makes sense. Go back, so just go back. Yeah, wrong. Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Okay. So it says that depending on the information and the conditions pertaining at the time, if there's uncertainty or diminished trust, presumably in the authorities, you get more chances of having rumor. The context, if the event is very significant, you know, the VP plane crashing, and it's impactful to generate rumor. If there's familiarity, repetition, if something keeps happening, okay, so senior politicians keep dying mysteriously, it will generate rumor. If the event has got a novelty factor, it will create rumor. And then emotional violence. Now that with the VP dying, you know, there's a lot of emotion. Even people who were completely against him, all of a sudden turned into his supporters, and some people almost wanted him canonized. Okay, and then the systems affect, you know, how people work within networks and algorithms. Okay. Rostow. Yeah. So Rostow contended that rumor results from combinations of uncertainty and anxiety that are related to rumor strength, and that might depend on the person's state. Or so if I'm in a state of anxiety, or if I'm a constant warrior and I hear rumor, you know, all those things improve the rumor. And the one I like most is, I think the next slide, Huang. Okay, that one. So Huang's study found that rumors decrease citizens' trust in authorities and support for the regime. Okay. And I think there's another one. Okay. I like that one because in Malawi, we like to say, oh, it's these uneducated people in the villages who are causing these rumors. The researchers found that individuals from diverse socioeconomic, so, you know, John Luanda is susceptible to rumor as his cousin in Malindi, who's never completed standard 4. And the next one, I don't think that's in the next. Oh yeah, okay, it is. So if the government rebuts a rumor, the rumor goes down, but the trust of the people doesn't go up. again, I think we can see that with the current VP. You know, the government says something, some people believe it, but Chikangawa, you know, people are still not convinced. Okay, theoretic underpinnings here. So rumors and civil society. So obviously rumors need a road. So the road is civil society because rumors spread from person to person within a civil society. And because when I was doing this paper with Chanika, I had lots of conversations with James Tengatenga, your colleague, who had just been chairing the public PSA affairs committee. I found his concept of civil society quite convincing. On orality, obviously read on King's Piri and Jack Mapanje, that paper, Orality and the Memory of Justice, I think in 1985 in the Leeds University Journal. Okay. The other theoretical thing is validity. Okay. Can we talk of orality in the digital age? And my argument is yes. In Malawi, we've just transferred verbal orality into digital orality. So essentially, what I do is I type one finger in my case, what I'm going to say, you know, you know that I'm retired now, you know, and spread that as a rumor, you know, and then tomorrow it comes back to me, Dr. Rwanda is retiring yesterday, you know. It's a digital orality. And the other concept of verifiability, how do you verify, how do you prove? Obviously, it's a sensory experience, observations, experiments, evaluation, or reproducible methods. Now, I come from Malindi, which is a Nyanja and Yao area. And when I was going to school, there was an interesting thing. If you're arguing with somebody, particularly who was a Yao and never go to school, they had a thing, they said, Papel and Billy. Where is it written? So the concept of somebody who was barely literate saying to me, a secondary school kid, where is it written? Okay, so, and then there are tautologists, you know, Roma, we're going to a development rally. Our president, you know, the president says this is a government. Okay. And then I go on to talk about the robustness of information, reliable, resilience, consistency, adaptability, truth. So more of the theory, of course, public sphere depends on Habermas. I don't think I should talk about that. But I start talking about where Nancy Fraser argued that Habermas' one public sphere was not enough. We need a multiplicity of public spheres rather than a single one. We need alternative public spheres, subaltern public spheres, which cater for marginalized social groups. And when I started, you know, thinking about this, I described chartering classes in Malawi, you know, especially, you know, small public spheres talking to themselves. Sometimes, you know, coming together, as Patrick Omari says, wheels within wheels. Anyway, orality, yeah, good. Malawi as a neo-colonial state and its colonial media, some of us experienced. I remember 67, 68, when I was in secondary school, high school, the Daily Times, just like in a UK paper, it was English. There was one page of so there was nothing post-colonial. It was just like a newspaper. And most of the articles were just really catering for the expatriate community. you know. Post 1994, one-party state and conservatism traits persist, very much so. There was a brief flourishing of paper media among the elite. I did a paper in the Society of Malawi Journal for the paper tigers, the rise and fall of the Malawi press. But anyway, Malawi remains largely oral. The adult literacy rate at 68.1% in 2022 is good, but not that good. You notice that the ownership of mobile phones has gone up from 0.4% in 1995 to 57.2% of adults in 2023. And more interesting is the fact that nearly a quarter of people in Malawi, adults I should say, have got access to internet. And for those who have got access to the internet, 3.8% are active on social media. Now, that 3.8%, again, I need to mention that that's the science of it. Is it Chenowan and his and her colleague did a study which showed that you only need 3.5% of active people on the social media to cause problems, and governments are in trouble. Again, we'll see what happens in America with all these don't want any kings, and what will happen to Tanzania with civil society exercise. That's why, interestingly, the first thing governments tend to do is just close up the internet. And paradoxically, which brings the countries back to the oral phase, and I think sometimes make things worse. On the civil society, we brought in AK's two worlds of the elite and the elite, and brought in Bembe, but we don't need to go into that. Formation of the factors differentiating Malawi public spheres: education, class, language, ethnicity, institutional affiliations, religion, etc., etc. One of the strongest public spheres, funny enough, is alumni groups. You know, which school somebody went to, which I can talk about this because I'm an alumni of Zomba Catholic Secondary School, and I discussed this with late Kadik and Kagawe, who was also an alumni. And neither of us have been invited to become alumni of the but I think some of the alumni, the founders, they wanted the group as a alumni of Zomba Catholic Secondary School, not a chaplain class of everything. I still felt excluded. A big problem in Malawi is the concept of self-censorship, even after multi-party. Self-censorship causes this effect of echo chambering. So I'm going to say to David what I think David wants to hear. You know, oh, you voted yesterday. Oh, I know what party you voted for. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So you're not really talking. You know, you just echo chambering, which impedes critical thinking, and you amplify rumor, the so-called Streisand effect. Streisand as in Barbara Streisand. I think Barbara Streisand had a house near the coast, and the waters were eroding it, and somebody took a picture and put it online, and then Barbara Streisand made the mistake of wanting the picture taken down, and that just made the so everybody said, "Where is this house?" So the thing went viral. Yeah. The other note is Hatton, a researcher, noted that the dominant Malawi public sphere was urban and tended to revolve around the theme of leadership. Okay, actually, Abule, Angoni, about respect and all that stuff. I deal with truth in the public sphere, how you can check it. You check it against sources, you go into Google and all that stuff. But is this traceable in Malawi? I don't know. And if there's a takeaway point, I think it'll be in the next slide, I hope. Yeah. So there's this, I need to spell it out for people who can't see the slide. CRAAP test, CRAP test. CRAP standing for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose of information. Okay. Next slide. And then, of course, is the issue of development and trust. So fake news might entertain, make money for content creators, but it's not very developmental. And I use Mazrui's functional culture. Mazrui saw culture as being lenses of perception, cognition, motive for human behavior, criteria of evaluation, a basis of identity, and a mode of communication. It's basis of stratification and a system of production. So if our culture is one of misinformation, it fails inaccurate information, and disinformation fails or intended to mislead, and rumor, that will not constitute a developmental culture. Tandika Nkandawire outlined three major challenges for Malawi governance. First, it must be developmental. Second, it has to be democratic. And third, such developmental framework should be politically and socially inclusive. If you take Mazrui and Mkandawire's framework, I'm not sure that Malawi passes that. Some factors impeding developmental rumor discourses are lack of transparency, infrastructure, positive, truthful information, poor governance, fear. Thus, rumor and gossip have dominated over vital developmental, educational, health, cultural, commercial, and political messages, making the vitality of the public spheres weak. There were positive aspects to information in the public sphere. For example, HIV, it was less so with COVID. And second, those that were there showed unresolved inherent conflicts between imposed political, social, and cultural norms. In the multi-party era, there has been a tradition of opinion formers. I'm sure some of you know them. Academics, scholarly, cultural, religious, economic, public intellectuals, cultural brokers, and other sectors. Their voices often bring vitality to debates. Okay, so having done the theoretical bit, just to prove that this is not just papers, not just gossip, they are, theoretical frameworks. Then I go on to examine significant public spheres at different historical and political times. So start with the colonial era was a minority literate, majority oral and oral public sphere, old enough to remember and see Land Rovers with loudspeakers used by the colonial government to spread messages. Diasporic communities had a significant input by messages and letters. Stories about Gwanari, Chikanga, the healers and witch-finders spread by word of mouth and song, saying that please send for Wanali, and if he's not up to the task, we'll get Chikanga instead. And then most political songs, when nationalism started, were about orality. Two, by narratives of unseen figures, usually father figures passed on in imagination. Okay, it is not surprising that the leadership came to be construed as father figures, even by politicians themselves. And then you had stories of the massacre plot, where presumably the government special branch were passing on gossip to the colonial government. During the self-governing phase, an emerging African lower middle and wage classes woke up to radio. In this optimistic phase, there was interaction between colonial and nationalist and within internationalist spaces. So you had the infighting between the Congress, various people who had now started seeing Dr. Banda as maybe dictatorial, Pemba Ndovi, Dunduza Jisiza, and others. At the same time, there were other forces orally promoting moves towards centralization, one dominant government. And then I move on to the one-party era. Obviously, the books, the details within the book.
Sure.
Yeah. The one-party era, Dr. Banda attempted to create a monopublic sphere, and he said something I can say, even if you wake me up in the night. So I want you to be vigilant. One party, one leader, one government, and no nonsense about it. Okay, so that was the ethos of all government media, including the Radio Malawi, newspapers, teaching in schools, had to be, okay, follow the government line. Despite or in spite of the hegemony, there were counter public spheres via literature, poetry, and the orality of indigenous poetry, proverbs, and folk and popular music. I'll come back to my friend Daniel Kachamba. Rumor and gossip dominated the public sphere. Daniel Kachamba, an astute social observer and critic, noted the culture of gossip in his song Miseche. Martin Kalinao, Komabaliben Kaligwe. Atrabano wa Miseche. I wanted to live with you, but there's no culture here. Locals here gossip too much. If there's a problem, let us talk about it. To emphasize the importance of not gossiping alludes to the social economic harms of gossip. Don't wait until you're drunk. Okay. The constrained atmosphere favored gossip and deniably drunk. And I think David, you were there at the time. A lot of our friends who were lifted, lecturers, were either lifted from the Gymkhana Club or from Anyway, while other scholars like Mpande have examined how writers try to circumvent the hegemony, I have previously strongly argued that musicians, folk and popular, also played a significant role in resisting Dr. Banda's hegemony. And if I can say, musicians in Malawi were and arguably are much braver and more persistent political critics and social change advocates than their counterparts in print journalism. Journalists censored themselves and were censored. Oral practitioners' lyrics and texts were usually much more explicit. Musicians exploited aspects of traditional culture to point out political and economic suffering of the peasantry. There was a beautiful song by Joseph Nangalembe, which was played on the NBC, and he says, Anangalembe Aliwanji, Mr. Nangalembe, how are you? And he answered, so he's inside, he's mending his rugs. So, and sometimes the NBC announcers and technicians would have fun with this because they would run Dr. Banda's speech. When I came here, I found some of you literally naked, especially Mwanzaneno. And then, the mass rally finishes and they cut to the NBC and they'll say, oh, we've listened to His Excellency the President, and then they play Nangalebe Muliwanje. How are you? He's inside mending his rugs.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I must say, I've got cassette recordings of most of it from the NBC. Anyway, the other interesting bit was Dr. Banda and the minister's tussle for the public sphere. Now, I call them Sammy's dads because that's what I started calling them. They should be called underground reference. When I started was on the strap, never changed Sammy's. I like it better than underground reference. Are wrongly thought of as a 1988-1992 transition to multi-party phenomenon. They were used by Henry Bembele and others after the cabinet crisis against Dr. Banda. So what they used to do was they had a person called Mrs. Gloria Perry, and she used to print these things and sign Mrs. Gloria Perry for the Pan-African Development Party of Henry Bembele. So the letters would point out, whatever mistakes Dr. Banda was doing. Sometimes, whatever they pointed out, for example, news from detention camps and the arrest of educated people. Sometimes these hit home. When I say hit home, upset Dr. Banda so much. There was one or two where the externally based cabinet ministers put out these pamphlets, and there was one in which they mentioned something about Chidzanja, Richard Chidzanja, and that caused some stress between Banda and Dr. Banda. Sometimes was prone to be very sensitive, but anyway, Chidzanja was later rehabilitated because he was an essential part of the party. And sometimes, if the people outside said something, it led to innocent people being arrested within Malawi, because Dr. Banda put the information. Okay.
John, I'm just thinking we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left, so maybe you want to get a bit into the transition and the absence period.
Okay. Transition. Okay. So there was an increased level of oral dissent from the mid-80s after the Mwanza 4 people were killed. Global factors, Mozambique refugees, local factors, hunger, malnutrition, health. In December 1991, a Christmas card wished Malawians a multi-party New Year. And more examples were to follow. I think the multi-party New Year, that was the work of a polytechnic group led by, I think this is Morris King's wife, I think. And they have followed those two letters, an open letter to JZU Temple, which was written by the business group of the then United Democratic Party. and the new matters, or who is the matter, which was trying to shake the established convention that only Chilembwe was the matter. Okay. Interestingly, the new matters, or who is the matter, was written by David Care. And he wrote that, and then his wife, Care, was reading it, and she said, "Yeah, that sounds like you writing." But we said, no, no. Anyway, and then, of course, what happened, Chihana came and all that stuff. The transition happened. And then when the new government came in, they found things difficult. Fortunately for them, there was some diversion in the public sphere with this Mchape episode, where thousands flocked to Rwanda to drink a herbal concoction alleged to cure HIV. Okay, so in the meantime, the new rulers had taken to consumptive versus transformative activities, and people like Lucius Banda's ceasefire. That time, Lucius Banda were musicians, well to the left of the middle. Okay.
John, time's almost gone, but I thought we must hear about the voice notes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you go there just
Yeah.
before
Voice notes. Yeah.
I have to finish off.
So voice notes was voice notes or video notes made their presence felt in Malawi soon after 2013, mostly via WhatsApp platform. As elsewhere in the world, voice notes are now a daily phenomenon. They are popular because they're cheap, easy to use, and oral. They're typically between half a minute and 2 minutes. Like emails, they can be accessed at any time. If you're allowed, 2 or 3 people or more can hear the voice notes. Okay, so I did case studies of voice notes on one on the region. So I compared the homilies of Reverend Hamilton Yasin Gama of Mvama CCP in Koma Synod, who's quite popular among the diaspora for his preaching style. Real life homilies. Doesn't usually laugh at his own jokes, but the jokes are very funny. The joke, for example, of a spinster on the bus, and he says to her, "How are you going to get a man if all you do is sit like that? You say hello to the guy next to you." And then I contrast that with Morris Mutali, on the other hand, now retired, preaches with Martin Luther King Jr. cadences, mostly effectively in Toboga, has been known to smile at his own jokes. Okay, and then the big one, I go on to do voice notes on political ones. Bon Kalindo. Bon Kalindo, perhaps the most successful voice noter at the time of writing, comes from Mulaje perspective. At school, he was spotted by a traveling theater founder, Ella Kampanda. So he is a school teacher, and he was acting in the Kwatu Trauma Group, became an MP, joined UTM and fell out with them. Advised actually Chilima to his face not to join Trans Alliance. But anyway, so he has these daily voice notes. The early voice notes were more speculative, but as time went on, obviously, development of network and people phoned him information, and they became more and more accurate. At the end of the voice notes, he has got this theoretical thing. These were embellished by his experience of frequent, undoubtedly political, motivated, and frequently televised arrest into a personality, the DC, meaning difficult child, the fearless president of the poor. The DC persona with theoretical booming hints at Kukwima, which is for irrigation. If you want me, come and get me, but be careful. So he's very popular on the YouTube. Okay. There are other voice noters like Makina Molosi TV and in Kangas Nai, Radio Limpopo. Okay. And then there are phone-in programs. I don't think I need to talk about.
Yeah, maybe just a final word
Yeah.
on this point.
Yeah. And then again, while I was writing the paper, the unexplained plane crash happened. Okay. So I think a lot has been said about that. But I wanted to read something. In all these rumors, there was a young businessman and social influencer, Pempero Bande, and he wrote, "The tragedy was a consequence of the country's inadequate infrastructure, outdated aviation equipment, and the government's inability to provide modern and safe aircraft for its citizens, including the country's second highest ranking official. A VP murdered by the inadequacies and deficiencies of our government and our systems of governance. A government unable to buy modern aircraft. Instead, uses an old aircraft built in 1988. And there was a funny, I call that sometimes being pompous, nexus between phenomenology, fact, and rumor. So when the Germans came and investigated the thing, and they're going to issue the report, a week before the report was issued, the Malawi president flew to Germany. And then the report was issued, and people said, "Oh, why did you go to Germany for?" Anyway, my conclusions were that there are certain things that can be done to improve the Malawi public sphere. Okay, so more IT, more truthful information, more education, more civic education, stuff like that. Okay, now I said I could prove that I've been writing this paper since 1995. What's your time? Oh, okay. Yeah, so let me prove it. So it's 1995, and I am at the Roman Hotel, and the general gets killed. Okay, and that time if you wanted to know about the rumors, you went to Lingazi Inn, or went to the Capital Hotel if you're Porsche, or you know the hotel if you're middling like myself. I was staying. So we're talking about the things, and then why is the general breakdown law and order? This government is not going anywhere, and all the other friends left, and I was staying in the hotel, so I stayed there. And then this waiter who had been serving me, I stayed in the hotel for 7 months, came and said, "Doctor, I know I'm only a waiter, but I think you big guys miss something." And I said, "But," it says the general stopped at Sangano to buy vegetables." I said, "Yes." He said, "Impossible." I said, "Why?" He said, "That general used Akaidi, has Akaidi servants or slaves at the barracks. There's no way he would stop at Sangano to buy." So I said, yeah, what does that mean?" Yeah. Woman. So how come we don't hear how the woman felt, that she was traumatized? Anyway, I followed that, and the results I promised is our praise. So it was this 1995 was full of rumor, and I wrote this short poem. Figments, 1995. The fertile figments of my imagination are fevered. It's through Malawian malingering from malignant malaria. See the sweet, seductive scent of saucy social scandal, rolling its rancid rumor round and round the village, polluting one mind after another in parallel fashion, its volume and potency magnified by each mouth, until it takes on the persona of the whole healthy truth. When one cannot afford the transparent sweet wine, barely filling opaque, energy-rich towel does fine. After all, transparency costs money and rumor is free. Why then, after my indigestive fill of the opaque rumor, does the Honorable Achigolide reduce my fever to 36 with aspirin of a rebuttal? As addicts need another fix. Never mind. Who will start another bloody rumor? Thank you.
Well, let me say thank you very much to Dr. Luanda, and I must also ask his forgiveness that I've been kind of hurrying him on to the conclusion. But the reason for this is that we do have another speaker who has been engaging with the chapter, and this is Professor Asante Lucy Ntenje from the Department of Literary Studies at University of Malawi, where she teaches African literature. Just a brief introduction to Dr. Asante. Her research interests include gender and sexualities, Malawian women's life writing, Afro-diasporic literature, popular culture, and Malawian oral literature. She's widely published in different journals and anthologies. She's also been the recipient of a number of fellowships recognizing the quality of her contribution. And since Dr. Luanda's just been reading from his poetry book, I should mention that last year, Dr. Asante has published her first collection of poetry titled Forms of Slaughter and Other Poems. So we congratulate her on this. And we're very grateful that she is stepping up today to give us her response to the chapter that Dr. Luanda has been introducing. So over to you, Professor Ntenje.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction. So my internet is a bit unreliable, so I'll have to switch off the camera just to make sure that I don't get lost in the process. So I just switched it on so that there's evidence that I'm indeed here. So I'm switching it back off.
Yeah, no, well understood, Asante. We hear it's been a difficult week in Malawi for internet. So we're very happy to hear you now that we've seen you.
Okay. All right. So this is how I've structured my response. So I'm just going to quickly give a summary of some of the main points that I picked up from the chapter, and then I'll move to some of the questions that I had when I was reading this this chapter. So it's just going to be about 10 minutes max. Here we go. So in this chapter about the vitality of public spheres in Malawi with regard to national development, Luanda suggests that the quality, robustness, and veracity of the information circulating in the public sphere will determine the public sphere's effectiveness on national development. Luanda develops the chapter from his previous work on public spheres, a concept which he borrows from Habermas, who defines public sphere as an area of contesting received ideas and developing formative and normative, as well as subversive cultural beliefs, ideas, and wisdoms. As Luanda argues in his previous works, various historical, social, economic, educational, medical, cultural, and political factors shape the nature of the public sphere. Habermas declares several aspects that are as vital for the public sphere. Mainly, it's supposed to be open to all citizens, and it is supposed to be constituted in every conversation in which individuals come together to form a public. The citizen plays the role of a private person who is not acting on behalf of a business or private interest, but as one who's dealing with matters of general interest in order to form a public sphere. Luanda argues that the Malawi public sphere, and I'm quoting here, is a complex multiplicity of significantly or tangentially intersecting spheres, with some spheres detached from the larger, more dominant ones. Public spheres detached from the larger ones include clans, family, cultural institutions which perform rites of passage, such as Chinamwali and Jando, and spheres intersecting tangentially or significantly with dominant public ones include the university alumni, neighborhoods, and he did talk about that in his summary of the chapter, religious work, cultural and political organizers groups. Dominant public spheres in Malawi often deal with religious, health, political and economic concerns as reflected in the history of the public spheres in Malawi, which he has also given us in his presentation. Malawi being a largely oral culture, the concept of an oral public sphere seems more plausible in the context of Malawi, and it has evolved from, for example, ranging from radio programs as a site in which government, right from the colonial period up to now, aspire to dominate through its discourse. Radio phone-in or chat programs, as well as extending to the emergence of digital orality. For example, as he says, through voice notes and video notes. These are features on WhatsApp, which are very convenient, especially to those whose literacy levels are low. So Luanda also, as he has already explained, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, he draws from Thandika and Kandawe's 3 points of challenges, or on the 3 points on the challenges for governance in Malawi. And he argues that based on the challenges that Kandawe puts forward, the Malawi public sphere, in all the political periods that we can think that we have in Malawi, have failed to actually succeed in all the areas highlighted by Nkandawire, as the country still ranks as one of the poorest in the world. And he further argues that because of poor governance, which fails to account for management of funds, health, and education, to mention a few, fear has taken over, and inevitably, rumor and gossip have dominated over developmental, educational, health, commercial, and political messages, making the vitality of public spheres weak. So I just have a few questions that I would like to engage with Dr. Luanda. In the chapter, he argues that there are examples from education, entertainment, politics, health, and business that show how the vitality of the public spheres have actually fluctuated over the period that he's studying. So from 1964 to 1961 to 2024. And that is sometimes this fluctuation of the vitality of the public sphere actually sometimes leads to the detriment of national development. And then he states that frequency refers to the number of messages. In particular, he's talking about VNs here, voice notes and video notes. That frequency refers to the number of messages depending on events, subject matter, interest, or controversiality. And that Malawi has a high frequency of given messages and VNs. But in general, I'm quoting from the chapter, in general, the vitality of messages is low due to a high quotient of inaccurate information, gossip, and rumors. So I was interested to hear more about his methodology and what led him to make these conclusions about the high quotient of inaccurate information and gossip that are present in the VNs. So I just wanted a bit more about the methodology. But I was also interested in the role of rumor and gossip in the public sphere, especially in contexts which are repressive. And he does talk about that when he's studying the evolution of the public spheres. I wondered whether there's something that he can say about how useful rumors and gossip are, especially in line of how rumor and gossip critique power structures, whether he finds them useful in critiquing power structures, and also whether he finds them useful, rumor and gossip, whether he finds rumor and gossip useful in sharing interests and anxieties, social interests and anxieties, common interests rather, and anxieties and social boundaries of the community. I wondered if he had something to say about that. I was also interested to know more about the emergence of VNs and their role in the public sphere. I wondered if you could say something about how VNs have enabled ordinary Malawians to have access to the public spheres, and whether he sees them as enabling the circulation of some messages that are actually of public concern that could actually lead to national development. So, case in point, I'm thinking of the role of VNs, for example, during the COVID period, and how also VNs have played a part in in circulating information about demonstrations, for example, rallying people together. So I'm wondering if you can comment something on the role of VNs in terms of enabling the circulation of messages that are of public concern, health concern, for example, like the COVID example that I've given, and politics as well. VNs by ordinary people, not necessarily by the Bon Kalindo, like the example that he's given. And I also wondered if there is room for comparison to other oral forms such as music, the role that the VNs play, if there's any room for comparison or contrast rather, or any kind of comparison rather, on the possibilities that are there in addressing public concerns. Are there any comparisons that you can make from there? I also wanted, more explanations on the statement that the chapter makes, and I'm quoting here. And he says that when the country is engaged positively with religion, this can have a constructive influence in the public sphere. But when it is an engagement of hopelessness, then this adds to negative messages in the public sphere and material despondency and dependency. I thought it was a very powerful statement, but I wanted to hear more on what he means by this, even with examples on how religion here can be engaged positively, and can have a constructive influence in the public sphere, as opposed to the negative messages that can lead to material despondency and dependency. I was curious about the examples, the examples that the paper gave, especially on religion and the VNs of Reverend Yasin Gama and Reverend Maurice Muntali. And in my mind, I was thinking about how image is very important in these videos. That the image of the preacher is very important in these VNs that are taken and circulated among members and shared over WhatsApp. And that some of these preachers, for example, Yasin Gama, has sort of become a celebrity of some kind. That it's a brand that his name is somehow a brand of some kind. And I wondered if you thought about, celebrity fame and the issues of building a brand versus authenticity in the VNs. The fact that image is very important and one has to curate this image. And I wondered whether that sort of complicates the idea of truth, of authenticity to the message that is being presented. And whether, so you do point out that there's some questionable VNs, especially from those that feature men of God who are claiming to be making prophecies about who's going to win elections, for example. But I wondered whether the examples that you gave, the religious examples that you gave, whether the idea of them representing themselves through video images and voice notes, whether that also complicates the whole idea of the truth that, in quotes, the truth that they are preaching about, the authenticity of the message that they're giving out. Considering this wave of celebrity that is there, and the need to make a brand, and the need for people to consume more of these VNs. So I wondered if you had a comment on that as well. So yeah, so basically those are some of the questions that arose when I was reading the chapter. But thank you very much. I want to express my gratitude for being given this opportunity to engage with Dr. Luanda's work. I've read a number of his articles that are very useful for my own class in oral literature. So I'm glad that I had this opportunity to engage with him in this particular chapter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mtenji, and very insightful and provocative questions. So let me give a brief opportunity first for Dr. Luanda, if he might want to comment on any of the points.
So I'll start with the religion. Now, is it Murray last time was really how the power of religion can lift the oppressed. It can be, is it Murray last?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in Malawi, you've got prosperity gospel. That's one. Two, you've got people who wake up. I dreamt something, now I'm a pastor. So maybe my methodology is a bit more, so I find that suspect. Okay. In the case of Yasin Gama and Mutali, they're both, they both, as far as I know, went to theological college. They both ordained ministers. They both have, Mutali is a child now. They both run churches within the established churches. And although they've become personalities, I'm not aware that they are gaining personality from the personality. In the case of Gama, a lot of people in the diaspora, particularly in Scotland, I can only speak for Scotland, like to listen to his messages. I'm married to a lady who likes Yasin Gama preaching, Mutali's preaching, as well as the other I don't know what you call it, independent Pentecostal preachers like Godwin and so on and so forth. I would say Gama and Mutali, I was just contrasting their styles. I had another paper in which I wrote about in the tribute to McCracken at the chapel. Pastors, prophets, and
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so it's in a previous book compilation. Is it Christian or?
It's Zuni Press.
Yeah,
I think it's Politics, Christianity, and
tribute to
Malawi.
So my views on these prosperity preachers are very much, this extensive religiosity in the midst of so much poverty. I'm extremely critical. Yeah. On music, yes, I favor the possibilities of musicians contributing, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively, to the public sphere. When Chakwera came on, Pixie had this hit called It's Anana, and it's Anana. It's an honor. Okay, so it was a take on how Chakwera pronounces It's Anana. So, there's all sorts of these criticisms of political figures counter-broadcast by musicians, either using just voice or tones or lyrics. Music is great possibilities. Images of voice notes, yes. I think voice notes are going to enable marginalized groups to prosper. In the medical field, I did some work with the group from the medical group from Glasgow University, and voice notes were being used by marginalized groups in South Africa to improve their standing in the community and to network. Voice notes can be obviously exploited by politicians, and voice notes can give totally erroneous information, like curing COVID with lemons. Okay. Rumor as critique, yes, rumor is a great critique tool. I give the example of my waiter at the Long Hotel saying very obsequious. You don't mind me making a suggestion? Essentially, what he was saying was, you educated people were talking rubbish. And what he told me, proved to be true. But that's a subject for another day. Education, yes. Voice notes, I think they will have a role in education. I've been asked to do one or two podcasts, so I don't know whether I'm going to say anything. I'm not an educationist, I'm just a memory. Anyway, methodology. Okay, my methodology, I need to be serious now. Why did I like this subject? Because you remember, Dr. Mteja, I lived abroad for many years. And in those days, we didn't have phones, we didn't have internet. All you had were letters and people arriving. So if somebody comes and say, "Oh, we saw this," that's how you got your information. Sometimes it's just a rumor, and we got used to getting information, rumor. You had to assess what was going on, and then phone calls would cost £1 a minute.
Sure, I remember.
And then you're phoning somebody home. You're aware that somebody's listening in. So what do you do? So it's difficult, and that comes to my methodology with the voice notes. My methodology is simple. I listen to Morgan, all these guys every day. I know it's a punishment, but and then you have to compare the information they've given you to something that happens. And if now it's easy because of WhatsApp. If I'm exercised enough, I'll phone somebody who is in a position to know. Okay. Actually, was it you I was talking to? We were talking about writing history, and Dr. Ross will be interested in this in the future. So when the McCrackens wrote their history of Malawi, they went to the archives and They look like they compile the history. Now, we've all seen on television what's been happening. We saw the pangas wielded by the previous DPP. We've seen the pangas wielded by the MCP during the past government. Okay, now nowhere, the press will say, "Oh, those are Nsumbe boys or MCP guys," but nowhere does it say that XYZ was responsible for paying these boys. Okay. Now the rumors, or our informant, or our shall we call them oral informants or rumors? We know who were doing that and who are doing that now. Okay, obviously I can't say it because I don't know. This would. So, how do you assess that kind of information? So when XYZ is arrested, I'll know that, oh yes, that information was correct. But we know.
No, thank you, John. Let me give an opportunity to participants who've been hearing the two presentations. Is there anyone who would like to raise a question with Dr. Rwanda? Was it got it on
Patrick.
chat?
Patrick's posted one there. I don't know if Patrick, if you would like to ask it.
I'm here, Muliwanji. Thank you for the presentations. And my apologies if this was covered slightly in the presentations. I had to answer a call at one point, but I was just wondering if there's anything about the language and how the rumors travel. If there's any issue, rumors or voice notes or whatever, if they appear in a local language first, or if they appear in English first, or if they change, or if things can get literally lost in translation or changed in translation. Has that been any part of your considerations? And as I say, apologies if that point has actually been answered.
Most of the voice notes are bilingual, so somebody might start talking about the voice notes. Patrick has done this today, and then I might go into the vernacular. Patrick, what is Patrick thinking? So people switch. Is it code switch? Switch codes. They use. So a lot of people understand what's being talked about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Anyone else around the table here who would like to raise a question?
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, please come in, Lucky Katundu.
Yeah, I'm actually watching from Malawi in Zuzu, and I've enjoyed the discussions and from both of the presenters. My question is there maybe a conspiracy between the media establishment, like the biggest newspapers that we have? For example, the Times Group is affiliated, is said to be affiliated, let's say, to the Malawi Congress Party, and then the Nation Publications Limited is affiliated to Aleke Banda, who was at one time a founding member of the UDA. And if you have some views that are against these two owners, you find that information may not reach possibly the audience in the way it was intended. So that's why possibly you could see social media influencers like Bakilum Luzi TV getting more popularity than the established media houses, which are supposed to fact check and provide balanced news. So is there any sort of conspiracy that is going on, or it's just random? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. The Times Group used to be affiliated with the MCP, but with the the MCP has got different camps, and it depends which camp is winning and which camp is ruling. The Times has become increasingly independent, So you see the hot current programs and all that stuff, very independent. And the owners of the Times, I think, stood up to the politics because when the previous government came in, they wanted to shut the Times, and they slapped them with a big tax bill. I don't know how they negotiated themselves out of it. So from that time, from that period, Times Group has been independent. Take Zodiac, which is owned by Gospel Gazabo, who was a minister in the Chakwera government. Although at some point it was a bit leaning towards the government, but he was astute enough to recognize that that was his legacy, his future. So it remained independent. Part of that is how he runs Zodiac. I think he's good managers rather than himself being day to day. The time I knew Gospel, he actually lived in Blantyre, and Zodiac is in Lilongwe. So Zodiac has remained fairly independent. The NBC, on the other hand, is the one that is usually captured by whatever ruling group goes in. Okay, so here abroad, we're now listening to the NBC because at the moment they don't know which way to turn, and the news is factual. Although the usual His Excellency this, His Excellency that has already crept in. So it's NBC that is usually captured. Okay. The nation used to be independent since the UDF frustrated Aleke Banda's vice presidential ambition.
Well, let me at this point thank very much Dr. John Mwanda for a very stimulating presentation. I think we're all taking away a lot of questions with us. Time has run out for us to answer them all today. But I think these trends and technologies that we've been considering, they're going to be with us, they're going to be moving and changing. So it's very helpful to have this analytical framework that can help us to assess what we are seeing and hearing. So big thanks to Dr. Luanda, also to Dr. Mtenji for the very insightful response, and to all of us who've been able to participate, and especially to those in Malawi who managed to overcome the connectivity challenges to be with us. So the final word is just to remind you that the book is now available in its UK edition. I think in the chat you can find the details of how to acquire it if you have access to the UK market. And for those on the Malawi side, let me repeat my promise that we're aiming to have it on the bookstalls and the bookshops in Malawi as soon as possible. And let me turn to our hosts, the Scotland-Malawi partnership, with sincere word of thanks that you have given a wonderful platform for the book, and we've had sample chapters presented on different occasions, and it's really given a life to the book, even as it's been in the process of publication. So that has been very exciting for us, and we want to extend our good wishes to the Scotland-Malawi partnership as they continue to find ways to engage the area of governance, so important for our future in Malawi, in Scotland, and in the world at large. So thank you, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of the day.
Zico.
Thank you.